welcome to another edition of AFL Today. I'm your host, E-Money, hanging out with the one, the only top AFL analyst, Tony Cozzolino, but we just call him T-Coz. T-Coz, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Great to be here, Money. I think after week one, I've got everything figured out. I don't know about you.
Well, I'm glad you got it figured out, because I sure don't. I do have to tell you, Tony, I was very impressed. I had heard a lot of negative press, and a lot of people were up in arms about this Iron Man rule change, a free substitution, and from the scores and everything else, it looked like just regular arena football to me.
Yeah, it did. Surprisingly enough, teams took it in stride, this free substitution. And the thing was about the scoring, a lot of people thought it was going to take away from the scoring. But I think what I saw out there, I saw better receivers. I saw a lot of teams out there with 3 number 1 receivers, and really that's going to bring scoring up, if anything.
Yeah, I was really surprised. Again, I was expecting the defense to be fresh and these guys to get a lot more pressure, but I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. It was more of a, again, you had go-to guys instead of just one go-to guy receiver. You had 3 go-to guys, and that really brought up the scoring. The other thing that I did miss, T-Coz, I have to tell you, was it's kind of odd not seeing the coaches on the fields going up and down.
Yeah, I think that was a little challenging. A lot of coaches, especially the ones that are very experienced, just accustomed to going out in that field, yelling at their guys, and they didn't have an opportunity to do that. Also, the substitutions themselves were a little tricky too. I mean, you've got some teams that have the benches in the end zone, and they had to run all the way across the field, and at times, especially on those goal line situations, you saw kind of a frantic scurrying of both sides of teams trying to get to there and change the packages. So it was something new all around for the players and the coaches.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially that's really where you saw the substitution, was these goal line stands where the quote-unquote big packages came in. And I even saw in one of the games the holder, actually I forget which game it was, but twice the team was ready lined up waiting for the holder, and he was still sitting on the bench waiting for something else. So I think everybody was kind of jostled around as far as the substitution goes. But of course, as with the week one, and as you taught me earlier, T-Coz, in my arena career, the first couple weeks of arena basically is the preseason, so we're not going to see razor sharp, although this year is a lot sharper than last year because most teams did in fact get some good scrimmages in, whereas last year that wasn't too prevalent. All right, now let's get into it. Columbus Destroyers take on the Nashville Cats and come home with a big win. Matt Nagy, 7 TDs, Gross grabs 3 of those, as again the Destroyers win 58-56, and Nashville could not stop Columbus when they needed to. Not sure if it's ready to abandon ship on the Cats, but definitely not the direction that they want to go, T-Coz.
I think Clint Sterner had a good game despite the loss. On the other side, Columbus, I think Nagy did a great job. Damian Gross looks like he's going to fit in just fine there. And then their defense got the stops when they had to. So I think Doug Kay, he's always kind of relied on defense, and that's been his forte, and they really showed it down the stretch. Back and forth game, though, could have been anyone's game, so I think both teams have some positives to take away from it.
Absolutely. Moving on. The war on I-4. Orlando Predators take on the Tampa Bay Storm, and what a game this was. I don't know if the Hollywood scriptwriters do this or how they plan it out, but who would have thought Shane Stafford going over to Orlando on the other side as the Preds dominate the Storm 52-27, and Stafford looked razor sharp, and of course going into Storm territory he had something to prove. Markham and Company, I figured he'd be fired already today. I'm not sure if it's happened, but automatic Grammatica was anything but, and we know how Tim doesn't necessarily keep his kickers around too long, but not really the start that the Storm were looking for. I know last year was the first year that Markham and Company did not make the playoffs, and now starting again with a loss for the season opener, the Storm cannot afford another slow start. And I don't know if it's too early to start questioning Markham's ways. Of course, there's been some controversy with him, of course, but when you're winning, nobody really cares. But now the Storm looks like they're starting out on lean times. I don't know if he's going to start getting some pressure. T-Coz, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't care if Grammatica would have hit everything he kicked. It didn't really matter in that game. It was a true whooping on Orlando's part. And I think Shane Stafford coming in to Tampa, where he used to play, really wanted it more, and he was really razor sharp, like you said. I think the receivers did an excellent job. And, they lost a lot of guys on defense this year, and people were concerned with that. And really, the defense is right where it picked up from last year. And also, Tim, this has got to be a bitter pill to swallow for Tim Markham and John Kaleo. It's his first game back, but I don't think this is a strong indication of what Tampa Bay is all about. they've been slow starters the last couple of years, and I think they'll pick it up in the next couple of weeks.
All right, T-Coz and his man Markham not giving up hope just yet. Okay, moving on. Classic arena battle here. Utah Blaze, New Orleans Voodoo. Blaze go down to New Orleans back after the year layoff from Hurricane Katrina, and what a fabulous arena game this was. The Utah Blaze and the New Orleans Voodoo, 63 to the Blaze, Voodoo 61. The Blaze win it with a last 0 on the clock, a last-second field goal. And again, the last person to have the ball usually takes the win in arena football. Joe Germain looking great with 4 TDs. I'll tell you who else looked good, even a losing cause, T-Coz. And I think I don't know if Andy's 50 yet or not, but I know he's definitely a veteran. Andy Kelly looked fantastic out there for the Voodoo, and just a savvy vet that keeps getting it done. He's been on the show, on our AFLradio.net show a couple times, and just a class act, and hate to see him lose one, but that's what arena's all about. The last team to get the ball usually comes up with it, and Danny White could not be happier, T-Coz.
And I'll tell you, Andy Kelly, he was coming in facing a team that's familiar with him. He was with the Blaze last season, so a lot of people thought the Blaze were going to be able to read his book and read him like a book and figure out what he was going to do this game. But he did a great job of keeping New Orleans in the game. They were big underdogs, and they really had a chance to win it. Joe Germain, I think he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league this year. And Sire Burley right there on his side doesn't hurt a bit. And, you know, I talked to some players earlier this week, and a lot of them say Sire Burley is the most underrated player in the league. And I think they could have a point there. He doesn't always get the publicity that the other guys get, but he's huge. And now they've got a kicker to add to their cause there, which is always good to have, and especially in arena football where a lot of games come down to the last second.
Gotcha. All right, T-Coz, got to hand it again to the Blaze for pulling it out. All right, moving on. Georgia Force takes a trip down to the Snake Pit and come out with a victory. And who would have thought, T-Coz, you and I were both questioning the move. Why get rid of Matt Nagy? The guy's a quality back. Obviously proved that in Columbus. But Chris Greason coming out of nowhere, Dallas's second-hand man, pulls up 9 TDs for a 69-65 win on the Rattlers. And just looking at the score, you'd have thought, oh, wow, it was a close game, razor close or whatever. But the Rattlers were down big. I think it was 41-24 at half, and the Rattlers could have quit early. But Nudo, I don't know if it was him getting thrown out of the game that fired it up, and the old savvy vets coming back. But Bonner and company, of course, 8 TDs. These guys, again, almost came back to win it from a very, very slow start. So, again, I think it's the oldness of the Rattlers there, maybe just kicking in, but also that veteranship allowed them not to throw this one away. And I also got to hand it off to Randy Gatewood, again, doing it again year after year. And these guys just continue to show what the arena football is all about. But again, coming up short, got to hand it to the Georgia Force, T-Coz.
Yeah, I believe it was you last year always asking, who's Dallas's second-string quarterback? Who's Dallas's second-string quarterback? Well, we found out who the second-string quarterback was. And this Greason guy, he looks like he's going to be a gem because he played a great game. And then you've got to look at the receiving core that they have, too. They've got Jackson, Lee, and then Bergeson, all basically #1 receivers. As I discussed earlier, with the new rules, they're a team that's really taking advantage of that, and I think they're going to be one of the higher-scoring teams. Of course, in this game, I think the score really didn't dictate what happened out there. The Force pretty much dominated the whole game, but the Rattlers, like the Blaze, or I guess you would say like the Tampa Bay Storm, I think are going to be slow starters and are going to start to blossom as the season progresses.
Again, a lot of the teams